Hi friends, this is Coach Dave Daubenmire. I'm sitting with my friend Dr. Ken Hovind, who recently, as most of you know, has been delivered from 9 years inside of jail. Back out on the streets, doing a lot of ministry here in the Columbus, Ohio area this weekend. But I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to sit down and find out from Ken Hovind's own lips just exactly what happened in this fiasco that he's been through. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what Kent did and what Kent didn't do. And I just thought it would be advantageous for everybody if we just kind of had a no-holds-barred interview here, asking the questions and give you a chance to hear from the horse's mouth. Not that you're a horse, Ken, but you understand exactly what it is happened. So thanks for being with us, and let's just jump in here. So Dr. Hovind, in jail 9 years. Take us back without giving us the whole full-length story. Exactly what was it all about, Doc? Why were you in jail?
Well, I taught high school science 15 years, moved to Pensacola January 89, began a ministry, Creation Science Evangelism. As speaking on creation, our ministry was growing, and I wrote numerous letters to the IRS asking exactly what am I required to do. You know, they never answered anything. And so turned out our neighbors, the college next door, and turned us in to the IRS for whatever reason. And they did a 9-year investigation, couldn't find anything wrong. And so they came and arrested me and my wife with a SWAT team in 2006 for structuring, which I'd never heard of.
You'd never been charged with anything up to this point?
Never been charged with anything, never. No indication of any problem other than every once in a while we'd get a unsigned letter from the IRS, and so we'd answer, what do you want? Here's what we do, nothing to hide. What happened was in 98, 99, we bought several older houses in the neighborhood to be able to expand our ministry because we're landlocked there in Pensacola. And so the whole neighborhood's built in the 50s, and so all the houses needed a lot of work. And so we had a lot of college students working for us, and they'd come over and say, hey, Kent, I got 4 hours free between classes. Can I help? And we'd give them $3,000 in the pickup truck and say, go buy shingles or go buy, plywood or something. And so we dealt in a lot of cash while we remodeled this older neighborhood for our ministry. And so from 99 to 2002, we were dealing with cash, and the pastor said, try to keep your withdrawals under $10,000 because the bank fills out some kind of form. It's not a form we have to worry about. The bank has to worry about. So my wife would go about every 12 days and get $9,500, if we had it, to keep on hand for all the projects we had going. 2002, we finally got credit cards and said, okay, stop. We're not going to use cash anymore because I didn't like her carrying all that cash all the time. And so we went to credit cards, and everything's fine. 2006, they come with a SWAT team and arrest us for structuring.
So this is 4 years later.
4 years later. I said, what? Yeah, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and 6 years ago, you were taking your money out of the bank in amounts less than $10,000. Yeah? What's wrong with that? Now, 4 times during that period, that 3-year period, she did take out over $10,000 for a big special project or something, or staff bonuses, and the bank filled out their form. The bank's problem. We banked at that same bank for like 10 years before this happened.
They knew what was going on.
Yeah, the bank's supposed to fill out a suspicious transaction report if they think something's fishy. They never did that. Same teller, same everything, And so when they come into the SWAT team, July 13th, the day before my anniversary, 2006, arrested us, took my wife out of bed, wouldn't let her get dressed or put a robe on or go to the bathroom, took her down to the courthouse in her nightgown in handcuffs. I mean, she's 50-some-year-old grandma, piano teachers, 5 feet tall, not a threat to anybody, It was awful what they did, totally unnecessary. Anyway, we get down there and find out we're both being charged with 45 counts of structuring for 45 withdrawals over that 3-year period.
So each withdrawal was a count.
Each withdrawal, which is not possible because you can't structure funds unless you have 2 withdrawals under $10,000 that total over 10. So to charge 45 times where each one is independently charged is totally false.
So I think it's important, though, Dr. Hovind, that people understand that these 45 charges were, in fact, just 45 withdrawals.
45
It wasn't like you were surreptitiously doing something 45 different times. You were just doing a withdrawal. Each time you did a withdrawal, they counted that as a violation. So that was a charge every time that you did that.
And each one can carry 5 years. They gave me, for the first 44 counts, they gave me 5 years in prison. And for the last one single withdrawal, they gave me 5 extra years in prison. I've been out for 4 months and 1 day, 2 days. And I still can't believe it happened to me. Almost 9 years in prison. That was one charge. That's the only charge my wife had, was the structuring. They gave her 9 months in prison and me 9 years. They gave me 10 years. I served 9 almost. The other count was not withholding taxes from employees.
Let me stop a second,
Okay.
there, Dr. Hovind, because we'll get back to that. People out there pass things through the internet. The internet's full. They Google
right.
your name. It's full of all kinds of stuff.
Right.
You were not stealing money from your church.
No.
You were not taking $4,500, $9,500 every 2 weeks and stuffing it in a mattress someplace
No.
and hiding it from the government.
No.
When you would go and you would buy shingles or whatever, you had receipts so that everything matched up. The money was spent.
Money was spent, taken out of a legitimate ministry bank account.
Not your account.
No, which we'd had for many, many years, spent on ministry bills. There was never nothing illegal, nothing immoral, nothing unethical. Church money spent on church bills. Absolutely nothing, no crime at all.
So then when you were found guilty then of this structuring charge, and we'll get to that here, more of that in a second, the IRS then at that point said, okay, well, Kent, since you've taken that money out, that $9,500, which adds up to $428,000 that you didn't put in a mattress, you spent on stuff, that money belongs to us. The government says that church money now belongs to the government.
And that money all went to buy properties or to remodel the properties or to the staff who are helping to remodel the properties. And so they said, you owe us $430,000.
Your money taken out of
Right.
church's money taken out of the bank. The government now says that's our money because you violated the law through structuring.
Right. The law was designed to catch drug dealers who were doing something
Laundering
apparently.
money.
Right, laundering money. And so they put in a motion saying we want to seize. Kent owes us $430,000. Then they checked around and found out I don't own anything. I live in a church parsonage. I drive a church van. You've drove it today,
right.
228,000 miles, and I don't own anything. So the government put in another motion that said we want to seize the church property to pay Kent's personal bill.
So they're charging you with structuring,
Me personally, structuring.
and they want to seize the church property.
Right.
So these are clearly two different entities,
Two
right?
different entities, completely different entities.
But they knew they couldn't get money out of you because you didn't have money.
One of the properties, 29 Cummings Road, was in my name originally in '93. I bought it. My wife and I bought the property from Mrs. Hicks, the older lady who sold it to us. About 4 years later, we donated that to the church ministry, and all the other properties were bought in the name of the church ministry. They were never in my name, ever. Okay? And so they said, we want to seize the church properties. And right away, the church trustee says, well, excuse me, you can't seize that. That's not his.
Kent's personal, whatever they're charging you personally,
They say, I owe them money.
the church is going to have to pay that, they're saying.
So why don't they go seize McDonald's or Walmart? They got more money, you know. Why
Right.
would you seize the church property? So the church trustees demanded a hearing or a trial or something. You know, hey, the jury never found this. The jury never found that this church property goes to the government. The jury found that the $430,000 should go to the government. Okay, well, I don't have any money.
Because it was spent.
It was gone. It's on the roof of the house.
It's not
on the
under your
carpeting.
pillows.
It's
It's
not
not-
new
not
kitchen
on-
cabinets, right? Okay, it was gone.
People need to understand that. You haven't hidden this money.
Nothing's hidden at all.
That's right.
Nothing at all. So they came back and said, well, we want to seize the church property. The trustee puts in a motion saying, excuse me, stop, you can't do that. That wasn't found by the jury. We demand a trial or a hearing on the subject. The judge lets it sit on her desk for 7 months. No hearing, no trial, nothing. All of a sudden, ruling comes down, yes, you can seize the church property. So the U.S. attorney runs down right away and seizes the church bank account. Now, we had 40-some people on staff, and so by then there's like $50,000 in there, which is, what, half a week's payroll or something, you know, or a week's payroll. So he seized the $50,000 out of the church bank account, and then he flew to Detroit a few weeks later to have sex with a 5-year-old, got off the plane with Vaseline and a doll, got arrested, put in jail in
You
Detroit.
can Google this. It's the truth. Right?
Yeah, John David Roy Atchison. He's the one put me in jail. And then he hung himself in jail on my wife and I's anniversary of our first date.
Wow.
August 5th, 2007. Which I feel bad for, but that's
Sure.
the kind of people that came after me.
That's right.
Then it was real quiet for a couple years. Then they went down to the courthouse and changed the names on all the church properties.
Who's they? The government?
The government did. They went down and changed the name on all the properties to say property of U.S. government. And then threatened my son. I was in jail the whole time.
Right,
you know?
right.
Threatened my son, you got to move out in 30 days or buy the property. And so he worked out a deal where he could rent it off of them, rent our own property back off the government. Finally ended up buying 2 of them, 29 Cummings and 400 right next door, back for the ministry. And insane what happened, just insane.
So let's get this straight, folks, so that you understand this. Dr. Ken Hovind was put in jail for taking your own money, well, the church money out of the bank to pay church bills.
Exactly right.
Which you had receipts for properties. This was not personal money going to Ken Hovind in a mattress, in a sock, in the ground. Money was spent and you had records for it.
Exactly right.
And the federal government said, because you violated this structuring law, that church's money, let's be true, right? This is church money. That church money now belongs to us.
Some people may argue about the word church. It better be a church ministry.
Ministry.
Like, does Billy Graham have a church?
Right,
Well, no, but he
gotcha.
has an evangelistic enterprise. Okay, so we were creation science evangelism, a church ministry.
They find you guilty and seize ministry money.
And seize
I
ministry
thought there
money.
was a separation between the church and the state.
You would think so.
You would think so.
There used to be. I thought there was.
Well, Dr. Hovind, a lot of people who have followed this case, again, a lot of stuff on the internet, they would say, well, he deserves it. In fact, I heard that from a lot of people. He deserves it. He's a tax cheat. He's a tax evader. How would you answer that?
There was absolutely no tax evaded or stolen or not paid at any moment. I have always paid every dime I owe. There was nothing about my personal taxes in this case at all.
I'm sure they looked for it too.
Oh, yeah, they searched for 9 years trying to find something wrong. Couldn't find anything wrong, so they went after this stupid structuring thing. I said, what on earth is this? I never heard of structuring. It's been all over the news the last couple of years because the IRS has used it to club a lot of people.
February 11th, this past of 2015, they admitted that structuring had been used illegally. Now, they didn't say necessarily in your case,
No.
but they did admit that it had been used illegally all across America.
IRS admitted last February that they're going to stop using the structuring laws to seize money. Well, they said, well, that's step one. Step two is, let's go back and make right everything you did for the last 10 years. You know, they talk about targeting conservative ministries. I was targeted way before it was known.
Sure were.
There were conservative ministries being targeted.
So you were never charged with tax evasion,
Never.
tax cheating,
Never.
any of that stuff.
Nothing like that. No.
Because that's the word out there, Pastor.
I don't know
Hovind.
how. Bible says don't bear false witness. It's one of the big 10. So
Right.
whoever's doing that's in trouble with God.
And folks, the truth of the matter is, it's been my experience that now that Pastor Hovind's out and doing his thing like nobody in the world can do, churches are still afraid to have you come in because they think you're a tax cheat and a tax evader. And we want to clear that up in the minds of people so that they understand exactly what it is that happened.
Well, keep in mind, our country was founded by a bunch of guys who threw the tea in the harbor.
Right.
Over taxes.
Over taxes.
Okay. I don't know if I'd been out there throwing the tea in the harbor with them or not, but I'm glad they did. Okay. So I do think our whole tax code needs to be revamped and looked at, and there's a whole lot of things need to be changed. But that's not my calling in life to go fight the government or fight taxes. I pay every tax I owe. There was nothing in my case about tax evasion. The first 12 counts, the 45 counts were about structuring. My wife and I both had those. The first 12 counts were about not withholding taxes from employees.
This is important, folks. Please understand this.
It wasn't anything about
As a ministry, you were paying your people in cash or however, and telling them they're responsible for their own taxes. You
Correct.
did not withhold taxes out of their money.
Correct. A church is not required to do that. Okay? And we did not withhold taxes from the people who worked there. And there's no requirement that you do so. They each went down independently and paid their own tax. And they testified at trial.
Or if they didn't, it's on them. It's certainly
That's right. It's not
on
my
you.
problem. Yeah, there's nothing. So there was no crime ever there with the first 12 counts. So that's the first 12 on me only. And then the next 45 counts were those withdrawals of the church money for church bills.
Well, how would you answer those out there who say, again, on the internet, I read a lot of this stuff, well, he's been anti-government. That Hovind, he's been preaching an anti-government ever since way back in the 1980s. He was preaching that message.
I love government. I love our Constitution. I love law. We have to have law. One of the first things God said to Noah when he got off the ark, Genesis chapter 9, whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. God's telling Noah, you all set up a system of government where if somebody kills somebody, you all get together and kill him. Okay? We have to have government. We have to have it. I'm in favor of it. And we have a constitution that's very clear on certain things. And we have laws. I did not break any laws in this case. I think those acting in the name of the government broke all kinds of laws to put me in jail. So it's not I'm anti-government. They're anti-government.
And so what they ended up getting you on, folks, this is crucial for us to understand. This structuring charge that they put you in jail on, we find out now was used illegally. So really the charges that they brought against you really weren't even legal charges.
Correct. Even if there was a structuring law that would have applied, we didn't break it.
Right.
To structure funds, you have to take out 2 withdrawals in one day. Go in the morning, take out $9,500. Go in the afternoon, take out $9,500.
Trying to avoid the reporting.
Trying to evade.
Evade the reporting.
There's a difference between evading and avoiding.
Okay.
I try to avoid the police. When I'm driving down the highway, I try not to run into them with my car.
That's true.
Okay. Now, evading the police is very different. Okay, that's different. I think everybody tries to avoid running into other people, or you should, you know.
Yes.
So avoiding attacks is perfectly fine. Evading attacks is not fine. So you have to get the words careful.
That's right.
Here.
It's very important.
I've done a lot of debates with atheists. I know how important words are. You know, what do you mean by levolution kind of stuff? So, no, there was no tax fraud. There was no tax evading at all. And I'm not anti-government. I love my country.
You want the government to obey the law as well.
I think I've said hundreds of times, I think everybody should obey the law, including the government. Okay,
so Dr. Hovind, all this money that the government says you are structuring, to the average guy, $428,000, that's a lot of money. Where's all that money coming from, Hovind?
What would the budget be of, say, McDonald's with 30 employees?
Or any church.
Or any church with 30 employees,
church, right.
Gee whiz, I mean, it costs. So when I first started my ministry, 1989, 90, somewhere in there, people wanted to get my videotapes. They said, well, we like these videos on dinosaurs and creation. Can we have a copy? I set some policies very early, right away in my ministry. I said, Lord, I'm not going to copyright my stuff. I want people to be able to copy it freely. Later, we had to change that and say, okay, it's copyrighted, but you can still make copies as long as you don't change them or sell them. So that's the only reason they're copyrighted now, is because people were editing things here and there, making a sentence out of this one and that one, making me say things I didn't say. So they're copyrighted only to the point where nobody can sell it or change it. Okay?
So you're producing these videos.
Producing videos, letting people
buying them.
$10 for a 2-hour video. Okay. And plus people are donating to the ministry. They say, Kent, we love what you're doing. Here's $500. Go get them.
So they love what you're doing,
right.
And people are willfully giving you that money to expand the ministry.
And I would travel and preach all over the world, and they would take a love offering for the ministry, and everything went to the ministry. Nothing to me personally. I took a vow of poverty that I wouldn't have anything. I didn't own a pair of socks. Everything belonged to the church ministry. I drove a church van. Our car, and I had lived in a church parsonage, and I still to this day don't own anything.
So let's nip that in the bud right now then, Dr. Hovind. I know this. You go to, folks, you pick your mega church, I don't care where it is. You go to that local mega church and you have to pay for the recordings of the previous day's sermon. You can order the sermon. You can order sermon series. Dr. Hovind was doing that exact same thing, but there's something very different, Kent. They accused you of being greedy. I heard that a lot on the internet. Oh, he's just greedy. He's stealing money and he's just greedy. But the fact of the matter is, you're producing all of these videos and you're telling people, copy them. Give them away.
Please do. Yes,
I don't care. I don't want the money for it. I want the truth to get out there. Right. How does that line up with the greed that they're accusing you of?
Anybody who knows me, people who've lived with me all their life, like my children, will tell you I'm the least greedy person they know. I give it away. We have people come all the time back to the table. Hey, how much is your videos? I can't afford it. Here, you can have it. Our Dinosaur Adventureland, we had a suggested donation of $7 to come through our theme park. Okay, show me a theme park anywhere in the world you can go through for $7.
We were just at the Creation Museum yesterday, and we're not casting aspersions at anybody. It was nearly $30 to get into that place, right?
So we had hundreds of people come just for free. We're not in it for the money. We're trying to win the war, not build the castle.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So my videos, my books, I've always said, please copy them, please spread them around. And it's always been a policy, and still is today. You can buy my video for $10, take it home, watch it, copy it, bring it back, and get your $10 back. Show me any ministry that does that.
Don't know of many that do. So I've been hanging around with you here for the last couple of days. I don't see a greedy guy. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. It's not about money with Dr. Hovind. There's another charge, though, Pastor Kent, that we haven't talked about, the legal charge. Can you explain that to us?
There were 58 counts total in my indictment. The first 12 were not withholding taxes from employees. Nothing to do with personal taxes at all, okay? Not withholding.
You're the head of the ministry, so therefore they're charging you with it.
As churches don't have to do that, And
don't have to do it. Legally do not have to do
that. And the people all paid their own tax. There was never one penny lost to the government, not one, okay? The next 45 counts were the structuring, which are as dumb as can be. There was no. The law is stupid to begin with, okay, and should be repealed. But even then, I didn't break it. There was one withdrawal. 12 days later, one more withdrawal. 12 days later, another withdrawal. Structuring is 2 withdrawals in one day. There was never any of that. Never.
With the purpose to elude reporting it.
Right. The purpose to evade the reporting requirement, which we did not do. The bank is welcome to report anything they want. They know where our money comes from. They know where it goes. The bank didn't have any problem with it. The head teller even testified during trial. The government asked him, did you think there was something suspicious going on here? No. Mrs. Hovind, I didn't do any of this. My wife did all the withdrawals.
Right.
She came in here every week and did stuff for the ministry, I was nervous about her carrying $9,500 home every 2 weeks. I said, no, stop. We're going to get some credit cards.
Pastor Ken, in this time with Donald Trump's all the rage right now, they've been kind of criticizing Trump because he's gone bankrupt. A couple of his businesses have gone bankrupt, or he's used certain type of deductions. And he said, listen, I'm just following the laws. Right. These laws, although they may not seem like the right thing to the average person, these laws are here, and we have every right to follow these laws. You're doing the exact same thing, and all you're doing is asking the government to follow the same set of laws that they've put down for everybody else.
Everybody should obey the law. The last charge, count number 58, was threatening an IRS agent in the performance of his duty. Which I said, what is this?
That sounds pretty ugly, by the way. People just read that, right?
They listed like 12 things on their charge. 11 of them are not even crimes at all,
As we found out.
As we found out. Too late, to defend it. And so my attorney asked him on the witness stand, when did Kent threaten you? Because someone had said that they came once and raided our church ministry and seized all the records 2 years before this thing, 2004. They're searching for something to lock me up on. So they came with a SWAT team in 2004, raided the whole church ministry, stole all the money out of the safe that we had there. And then 3 months later, they said, the agent said, we have to keep this money as evidence of a crime. Okay. 3 months later, they made up a civil tax bill to the exact amount to the penny. And then applied that evidence of a crime to that civil tax bill that they made up in 3 months. I mean, don't you get to the end of the year to do taxes in April or something? No, it was amazing. And nobody's ever been called into account for that one. Okay, that needs to be investigated. I've often said I think Congress should do a complete investigation of this case from the top down. Everybody on down needs to be completely and thoroughly investigated, and the real criminals brought to justice.
By the way, you've written a good little booklet about that experience. What's it called?
The Kennel, here, right? The Kennel. Did you bring one in?
I didn't bring one in with me, but it's a very small little booklet. It talks about...
Well, the last charge, though, was threatening. And so someone had said that after they raided our ministry in 2004, the next day I'm doing my daily radio program on Truth Radio, and someone called in, hey, Kent, why don't you pray for the guys? So I prayed something like David would pray in the book of Psalms. Precatory prayer. I said, Lord, I'm your child. This is your ministry. They came in here unannounced and took a bunch of stuff. And Lord, I would like you to take care of it, please. Father, would you handle it? Turned him over to God. The agent felt threatened.
Should.
Well, I'm not threatening him.
No, that's right.
I still today
would like God, the Lord.
I still today would like God to take care of this. Mm-hmm. So if that threatens him, they'll put me back in jail for threatening him.
But again, that really colors the jury, doesn't it? I mean, they see that this guy, and everybody reading this stuff on the internet, 50-some charges, he threatened an IRS agent.
Well, that's why they do 50-some charges. Right. It looks horrible. Mm-hmm. Instead of 3 charges. It really was only 3 different events. Not withholding taxes from employees 12 times.
Which you don't have to.
That was 12 quarters.
Right.
They could have charged it as 1 charge.
Right.
Okay. 45 counts of structuring, which could have been and should have been by the law 1 charge.
45 times.
No, they made it 45 separate charges.
I got you. That's right.
Yeah, separate charges. I served 5 years in jail for my wife going and taking $9,500 of our own money out of our own bank to pay our own bills.
So, Dr. Hovind, you believe people ought to pay every tax that they owe?
Absolutely. I've never been a tax protester. Our country was started by those guys, and I'm glad they did. Mm-hmm. But I'm not a tax protester. If you owe it, you should pay it. Churches all over the country become 501c3 so they can get out of paying real estate tax and other taxes. We never did that. We paid real estate tax on our property. We chose not to do that. So if you owe a tax, you should pay it. When I go down and buy gas, I pay the tax on the gas. When I go buy a hamburger, I pay the tax. I'm not against taxes at all.
So let's move ahead then, Dr. Hovind. 2015, they now bring up new charges against you. Maybe came up in 14, but certainly it's going to be played out in 2015. And these charges are mail fraud. You hear that? That just sounds awful. I don't care who you are. Not only this guy, he had 54 charges of this, and he threatened the guy. Now he's mail fraud from jail. What was that all about?
I was moved 30 times while I was in the federal jail system, federal prison system. They moved me all over the country, okay? While this was going on, of course, we're fighting the original case, saying, look, you can't sell that property. There's still litigation pending. I filed a lawsuit against the BOP employees in South Carolina because when they moved me out of South Carolina, they kept my box of legal materials for 16 months. Ship me my stuff, please. Okay?
Yeah, because if you're trying to build a case on your own, whatever, you need your materials.
Well, so when we finally turned in the motion to the court, they said, you're time barred, you only had 12 months. Well, they kept my stuff for 16 months. What do you mean only got 12?
Folks, you understand that? They tell him you have a year to appeal and keep his stuff for 16 months so he can't intentionally so he can't get an appeal together.
Well, after the original case in 2006, we paid right away $4,600 to get the transcript, the trial transcript. You have to have that to appeal to the appellate court.
Right.
It typically takes 2 months to get a trial transcript for a trial of 2 weeks long, okay? Took 16 months to get my transcript. And then it had been altered. My transcript had been changed. Altered the transcript, took 16 months to get it. So that was a way to keep me in for a year and a half unnecessarily. So the South Carolina folks kept my stuff for 16 months before they sent it to me. So by now I'm up in Berlin, New Hampshire, and my cellie is a brilliant guy with the law. He said, well, Kent, you can file a Bivens suit against those guys. I said, I don't know what a Bivens suit is. He said, well, Bivens is the name of some guy years ago that had the same problem, and he filed a suit against the federal employees for hindering him in doing his legal work, okay? So we filed a Bivens suit in South Carolina, which later got thrown out because I didn't file something on time, okay? Years later got thrown out. He said, now that you have a Bivens suit filed, you can file a lis pendens at the local court in Pensacola. It's just simply Latin for litigation pending. Let the folks know, hey, if you're going to buy this house, you might want to be aware there's still litigation pending.
So, folks, when the government's now going to try to sell these properties that they've seized from Dr. Hovind, and he's filed his Bivens suit, he wants to send out and put into the record, wait a minute, this is still under dispute. These are not clear titles. Just like if you wanted to go buy a home, they do a title search to see if there are any liens or anything against it. So you wanted to put notice in there. In your mind, this is not free, clear property, and buyer beware.
It doesn't stop them from buying it. It just says, be aware there's litigation pending. Okay. They called that mail fraud for using the U.S. mail, which I don't know if I did or didn't. You can pass messages all kinds of ways in prison, But even if I did mail it, they said it's mail fraud for mailing a letter to the courthouse. This is not, nothing secret about it. This is
You mailed a letter
to the courthouse saying, hey, litigation is still pending. They brought a new charge of mail fraud, which carries a 20-year sentence.
And if you had hand-carried that, would it have been mail fraud?
It would not have been mail fraud.
And so,
even then, to be mail fraud has to go over a federal zone. I'd never heard of federal zones. I said, what is that? I discovered all kinds of interesting things in prison. The courthouse is not on federal property. It's on private property that is leased to the courthouse.
But your intention was not to defraud anybody.
No, I'm just simply saying, hey, there's litigation
That has to
pending.
be the intent of the law, doesn't it?
Right,
have to, in order for it to be fraud, it has to be intentional fraud.
My intention was to let folks know, hey, there's litigation still pending. If you buy this property, be aware. If I win this Bivens suit, that could overturn everything.
That's right. I could get this property back.
I could get this property back.
And you're left holding the bag.
And you're holding the bag.
You're trying to let the buyer beware.
That's all it was.
That's all it is. So they bring these charges.
And kept me in county jail for 12 months, which is the armpit of the whole system.
Yeah, folks, if you don't know that once you get into the federal prison system, you're pretty well taken care of. Good food, exercise. You have rights. In the county jail, as he said, they're the armpit of America, man. You don't have hardly any rights in there at all. So when we really got involved with it, then Pastor Kent, you were right at the end of this trial, February 18th, I believe it was, when we caught wind of it up here in Ohio. So we got to go, and a bunch of people, Rudy Davis and Racer X, and a lot of people got involved with Free Ken Hovind, and we really, as you said, I heard it from your own lips, from jail, not to me, but I heard a recording of it. The only weapon Gideon had was light and noise. We got to shine a lot of light, and we got to make a lot of noise.
Exactly.
And we did that, and on the trial on February 18th, what happened in that first trial for mail fraud?
They found me guilty of 2 counts and innocent on the rest, and hung jury on the rest, and then had to go back to trial again.
The 2 counts were contempt of court.
Right.
What was that charge? What were you in contempt of court of?
I don't know. What was I in contempt of court of? I was never been.
They tried to assume that there was some order to quit filing these motions or whatever. Something. I'm just guessing. That's what I heard.
I didn't file any motions.
but that somewhere the jury found you guilty of 2 counts of that.
Which was insane.
And then, Dr. Hovind, we find out 10-1, they found you
11-1.
11-1 guilty of the mail fraud, but it had to be unanimous. So you had a hung jury, 11-1. One guy would not say, no, he's guilty.
Praise God for that one guy.
Praise the Lord, because it's a long story, folks, because then at that point, we think, well, we've won. He's free and they're going to let him out of jail. He's been in 9 years at this time. And right away they come back and they refile the same case.
Right.
So we're going to bring you to trial on May 12th, I think it was in my mind. So that's not a whole lot of time. So at that point, we're all trying to get actively involved to try to help you get out. Long story short, we ended up finding out, Pastor Hovind, that what they had found you guilty of, 11-1, although a hung jury, 11-1, we found out through a brief that was written that it wasn't even a crime.
Not even a crime at all.
That what they found you guilty of, 11-1, even though it was a hung jury, when they tried it again in May, it didn't go to trial because it wasn't even a crime.
See, the average juror gets in there and they're enamored by the big courtroom and the U.S. attorneys, and they're dressed so nicely, and they think, wow, this is the U.S. government. He's got to be guilty of something. They had not lost a case. The U.S. attorney had not lost a case in that court for 9 years.
You hear that, folks? The federal government was undefeated. Does that sound like justice to anybody, that they were undefeated, won every case for 9 years?
They win 99% of their cases. See, the average juror needs to understand, and I encourage everybody, if you can, get on any jury you can and use what's called jury nullification.
Yeah, they don't talk about that much.
They don't even talk about it in school. The kids should learn that. Mm-hmm. The founding fathers of this country made it very clear. Jury nullification is essential. If they passed a law in Hebron, Ohio, where we are, that it's against the law to spit on the sidewalk, and you think the law is stupid, that's none of their business, okay? You can spit on the sidewalk if you want. So they catch somebody for spitting on the sidewalk. They got videotape, and there's no question he's guilty. And you're on the jury. You listen carefully during the trial. You nod your head, and yep, no question, he spit on the sidewalk. Then when it comes to vote, you vote not guilty, because that nullifies the law.
Mm-hmm. So you're judging both the victim or the defendant and the law.
Correct.
In other words, asking this question, not only is that a law, but does that law really apply in this case?
And is the law constitutional?
Is it constitutional? Should it be a law at all?
Should it be a law at all?
Right.
For instance, drug deal. I've never taken drugs, never tasted alcohol. I'm 62 and a half. I had NyQuil a couple times, okay? But I've never tasted alcohol. But if I was on a jury and someone was in for drug dealing, I would vote not guilty. I think it's federal government especially. It's not their business. Mm-hmm. The Constitution's clear. The federal government has certain duties, and then the 10th Amendment says anything outside of this belongs to the states, not to the federal government. Federal government should not be involved in welfare, drug enforcement, none of that stuff.
Abortion. We're going to go down a rabbit trail here, but the reality of it is jury nullification means this, that the person sitting on the jury has the right to judge both the the defendant, did he do it, and does the law even apply in this case? So we look at your last trial for mail fraud. Clearly that law, whether it was a law or not, it did not apply in this case.
Correct.
Dr. Hovind, they almost sent you to jail for 20 years.
I know. It was this close, brother.
For something that wasn't even a violation of the law.
I know. To make it more bizarre, when I was in Berlin, New Hampshire, the prison camp up there, Congress years ago passed a law called the Second Chance Act, okay? If they give you a 10-year sentence, the BOP can give you 6 months off to home confinement and 10% or 1 year halfway house. I put in the note on time. I said, I'd like to be released to halfway house February 2013.
2 years ago.
The BOP in Berlin, New Hampshire said, no, we're going to deny you halfway house because our prison isn't full. We need you for body count.
Wow.
I could have been home a year earlier. Halfway house is 3 blocks from my house. And at the halfway house, what a money-making racket. What they do, they bring you in, you get a bed, and you got to pay 25% of whatever you make to the halfway house. After you make 3 or 4 payments, they'll say, okay, now you keep making these payments and you can go home, but don't mess up or we'll put you back in jail. Then they rent that bed out again. Mm-hmm. They'll have the same bed rented out 6 times.
Great money-making project.
Money-making racket.
So, Dr. Hovind, a question I want to ask you here that I've thought a lot about. Christians, churches, pastors, believers, we all believe in redemption. In fact, that's what our justice system is supposed to be about, right?
You would think so, yeah.
They call it correctional institutions, right? Because they want to correct you. They want to correct
and justice.
the behavior.
Justice, not just ice.
So,
Justice.
so Pastor, you're out. You're able to go speak in churches right now, and your schedule's filling up certainly, and you still got what you've always had for sure. But the truth is, there are many churches out there that won't forgive you for what they think you've done. So, Dr. Hovind, let's say you did all that stuff. Let's say that you were guilty of all that stuff, and you were evading taxes, and you were doing all that stuff. Brother, haven't you done your time?
More than my time. Way more than my time.
You understand the point that I'm trying to make?
Maximum sentence for structuring was 6 months. The judge said at sentencing, this crime is worse than rape. I'm enhancing this to 10 years. Worse than, and that part's gone from the transcript, by the way.
Well,
everybody testified.
There's affidavits about that.
All kinds of affidavits. We heard her say the crime is worse than rape. Where is that in the transcript? So I would like Congress to investigate this from start to finish, from the judge on down. Everybody needs to be under the microscope.
See exactly what happened.
Exactly what happened here.
But I'm trying to focus right now, Dr. Hovind, on people right now who are watching us. Brother, what a gift you have. You know, I watched you today in a public school. I watched you in a church setting. I've watched you. I've watched what you're able to do. I see the gift of God that's in you. How much longer, Pastor, are other churches and other pastors going to hold that hammer over your head for what they see as a mistake you made? What would be your response to that?
I can't help them. What can you do?
I mean, if you're guilty, right? You've done your time.
If you're guilty.
I'm sorry. I've repented to the Lord. I've done my time. I did my crime. Yes or no? I've done my time. So I guess I'm appealing to people out there. This brother is a gift to the body of Christ. One of the greatest, let's just take a second, Pastor Kemp, and let's talk about, from my standpoint, why I think it's such a gift. The dastardly doctrine of evolution as currently being taught, why that is so deadly, and why the gospel is the only answer, the only way to be able to fight this thing.
Well, there are only two options anybody's ever thought of. Either there is a God or there isn't. Nobody's thought of a third choice, okay? And if God gave me any gifts, it's the gift of staying in fourth grade all my life. I keep things simple, fourth grade level.
You do, for sure.
Okay. So if there's a God, then he decides what's right and wrong because he created this place and he owns it. The founders of this country felt that way. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. They're endowed by their creator with certain rights. So the idea that there's a creator brings with it the idea that, okay, we can determine right and wrong based on what the creator says. God decides right and wrong. But if there's no God, then government decides right from wrong. And there are some people who would like government to be in charge of everything.
Separation of church and state, right?
Communism, socialism, Marxism, Nazism, all those types of governments come from the philosophy of evolution. There's no God. We're God. Mm-hmm. And so that's where this evolution theory is not only stupid, it's dangerous.
And so they've told pastors, you can keep your religion, but keep it in your church. Don't bring it into the government. Don't bring it into the schools. And the result of that is what, Dr. Hovind?
It'll take a look around. It's chaos. Yeah.
And so the idea of evolution just being a theory, and by the way, this I've heard this several times this week, and it just keeps popping out at me every time when Dr. Hovind says that, listen, evolution, you have to believe it. It's a belief system.
The religion.
You believe Christianity or you don't believe Christianity. You believe evolution. Hey, Dr. Hovind, you don't believe in gravity, do you?
Well,
I mean, you don't have to believe in gravity.
Well, you can see the effects of it.
You see it,
right?
You don't believe in have to believe in night and day.
You can see it.
You can see it. It's self-proving, right?
See, that's the difference between science and religion. Science is things you can observe, study, test, demonstrate. You can't observe evolution. Nobody's seen a dog produce a non-dog. They can believe it if they want, and they do believe it. But that doesn't make it science. So what we have is I think, a poison, a religion mixed in with science.
Government funded.
Government funded. We are all paying for their religion to be taught. Why don't they pay for my religion to be taught?
And we find that according to statistics, 70% of children still believe, 70% of Americans still believe they were created. After 2 generations of evolution, the average person still doesn't really believe it, yet we allow it to be taught in our schools as fact.
And the atheists look at that number, 70 or 80%, whatever it is, they'll say, wow, those people are so stupid.
Yeah.
We're so smart. They're so
They're
dumb.
so dumb. They don't get it.
They can't see it.
It's interesting because in one of the schools we went today, there was an issue with whether they were going to let Dr. Hovind speak because religious. And of course, these schools are religion-free zones, and we can't have a Christian come in and talk about creation. So that's the way they play the game, don't they, Dr. Hovind? They call their belief system a science.
Right. Well, I've often pointed out it is mixed in with science. Beer is often sold at football games. Beer has nothing to do with sports, nothing whatsoever. But somehow people think it's by association, it must be part of the sports, because it's always here. Okay, the fact that evolution is often in the textbooks doesn't ever make it part of science. The fact is we've never seen a dog produce a non-dog. Never. They believe it. Okay, believe anything you want, but don't call it science.
It's a religion.
It's a religion.
Let's do a quick review here, folks. So, Dr. Hovind, you went to jail for structuring, which is taking your own mail or your own money out of the bank. Church's money, kept the receipts, didn't stuff it in nothing. Right?
Nothing lost to anybody anywhere.
Nobody was hurt. Nobody lost anything. Right. The money that you spent was money that people had given to Creation Science Evangelism.
For that purpose.
For that very purpose.
We announced, hey, folks, we're buying up some properties in the neighborhood. If you want to donate. People would donate. Okay, and we did exactly that.
You paid every tax you're required to pay.
Every time.
You never evaded nor were charged with tax evasion.
Correct. No charge at all.
You have not violated any law, at least not. You haven't. You haven't violated.
Well, I do speed once in a while.
Okay, but they've got to be caught. You evade those police officers. And you have not gotten rich off of taking money out of the ministry and hiding it in a sock somewhere.
Exactly right. I've never had a new car. I don't understand what people who know me real well will say. I'm a generous guy. I give away everything I can, and I'm in it to try to win the war, not build a castle.
So, Dr. Hovind, I guess I'm speaking to all those people out there. I hate to say it this way. Used to be on your team. A decade ago, they were on your team, and now all of a sudden, whether they traded you or whatever, we're just trying to clear up exactly what happened. Because, folks, this guy carries within him a gift to destroy this lie of evolution, macroevolution in particular. And now that he's back in the game, we need to get him speaking as many different places as we can. It's a remarkable gift. It's been, for whatever reason, it's been put in jail ministry for 10 years. He is now free and open to coming to your church. So whatever it is that you're holding against, you've heard from his lips here, that folks, if he was guilty, they would have done everything they could to keep him in jail. They did not want to let Dr. Hovind out. That's a miracle in itself. That someday I'd love to be able to tell you that story. So we wanted to give him an opportunity to clear his name and tell exactly what happened. We went into the school today. He doesn't deny he's been in prison. How are you going to deny that? Yeah, I was in prison. So was Paul, right? 2/3 of the New Testament.
Half the Bible written
from jail. Right? Yeah. So he's not the first guy. We think he was unjustly imprisoned. A lot of reasons why. And I know this about Pastor Hovind. He's looking forward. He's not looking backwards. So we just wanted to clear the air today. Pastor Ken, anything else that you'd like to say to the folks out there?
No, it was surprising to me. In my 9 years of prison, I had 6 pastors come visit me.
Only 6 in 9 years.
Everybody's busy, I understand, but that
part of it's fear, isn't it, Pastor?
I don't know. I traveled. I spoke at hundreds of churches. Like, hello, where did everybody go? Well, Jesus' own disciples, forsook him and fled when he was.
Right.
People are scared of our government. That's not the way it ought to be.
No, it isn't.
The government should fear the people. That's freedom. When people fear the government, that's tyranny. And it's pretty sad that we've gotten to that place in America where people have to fear the government.
Yeah.
That's the way it is in communist countries, has been for generations,
All we have to do is look at what's going on in America, the tyranny now, and people won't speak up against it, and it's all out of fear, right? God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And if we ever need the truth of the gospel more than we need it now, I don't know when that would have ever been. It's a great opportunity, and we just wanted to hear you from the horse's mouth again exactly what it was that happened. It's Coach Dave Daubenmire with Pastor Ken Hovind, Dr. Ken Hovind. How'd they get a hold of you there, Doc?
Our new phone number is 855-BIG-DINO.
855-BIG-DINO. 855-BIG-DINO.
That's 244-3466, or website 2peter3.com.
2peter3.com. All its videos are on there free. Hundreds of videos, presentations, they're free. 2peter3.com. contact him there. You're welcome to. You'd love to come to churches. They got to get a hold of you, give you an invite. I invited him here. Said, how much is it going to cost me to get you here, Doc? And he said, well, the Lord will take care of that. The Lord's going to take care of that.
We don't charge. Never have charged anything. I ask churches, pay my way to get there if you can, airplane or gas, and take a love offering.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's pretty good. Sometimes it's not too good.
You greedy dog. You greedy dog. So there you heard it from Pastor Ken Hovind. Again, Coach Dave Daubenmire. Thanks for tuning in here with us today. And let's spread the word and get Dr. Hovind back out there tearing down those devils of evolution.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you.